isn't going to be screwed up by some other information that's completely irrelevant or completely...
That seems to me a very good observation. Did you just make that up, or did you
No,
get that somewhere? It seems to me a very pointed and pertinent observation. You know, it's not just longitudinal studies, it's long-term business strategies. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you look at, especially manufacturing in the West, this is a kind of business that takes a long-term perspective, you know, when you're making big, complicated machines, as opposed to designing software or something that is a quick release, always new. You know, and the trouble, especially in America and Canada, the manufacturing capabilities going down, car companies going down. Ford's making good cars now, and making for about 5 more minutes, you know, before it goes back to a very quarterly, profit-driven model of business, not a long-term model of business. Somebody have their hand up? Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, longitudinal studies take years, and like those quick studies you can pump out pretty quickly. So just because there's lots of those doesn't mean the other ones aren't also happening at the same time. Like you could do 10 short studies, but not take 2 longitudinal studies.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So there definitely are lots of longitudinal studies, but why aren't they? But if they're constantly going on, then they should be popping out all the time too, right? Because at any point in time, a longitudinal study has just finished. You know what I mean? I don't know. Nami.
I think it makes a lot of sense, and longitudinal studies are important because that's the way the technology evolves so rapidly. I know it's always feasible.
That's the thing, you know. I mean, it's a bit of a dilemma in a course like this, where you want to study something that's really new, right? New media, but you can't find the research on it. You know what I mean? Because it just hasn't really. Tech bloggers are talking about it, newspapers are talking about it, but the scholarship hasn't been done on it yet. So the trick there is, of course, to find, you know, research that you can say relates to your subject. I should have told you this before you handed me your research proposal.
Excellent research. I don't even remember what it was that I was reading the other day, but there was some title that some woman had who's working in a university, and she has a PhD in social networking, basically.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of occurred to me, like, how do you research, how do you do that? How do you know that you're doing a good enough job at researching these things when they are so new and they are like, you contribute?
You know, you just do your best and you never stop working. You're constantly scanning 20 different sources. You know, you're reading 10 newspapers a day. You do your best and you just accept that what you're going to put out is all of a sudden they're going to be like, you know, hey, we've just created, you know, cyborgs. You know, you know. Any other thoughts on this tangent we kind of went off on? Okay, what else did I have? I actually have PowerPoints for my other observations. Oh yeah, interesting little article in the Ottawa Citizen. This was October 18th or 16th. You know, and Thomson Reuters, one of the largest media companies in the world, has announced that it's not allowing anonymous comments on its blogs anymore. Or sorry, on its website. You know, the comment streams after the news stories, basically. You know, citing worries about obviously scandalous or scurrilous speech commentary. So, and the article writes that, you know, this is, you know, a shift away from creating this online community, right, which was sort of the focus of media companies trying to remain relevant in the digital age. And it's been echoed by the CDC, New York Times, Washington Post. There's a shift towards forcing people to identify themselves as their true identities on the internet. Any thoughts about that? Worrisome? Wonder? Good? Bad?
If it's not anonymous comments, you can still like fake an identity and then start posting.
Yeah. So it's, you know, you can still do that for now until, you know, until all of our identities are so plain and clear that you can't get away with that. You know what I mean? Any other thoughts on this?
About a month or two ago, they were going to do the same thing on the World of Warcraft forum.
Oh.
Because there was a lot of trash talking and everything, just like on anything. Like
there's a lot of weirdness in the World of Warcraft.
Not that funny, but So there was a big backlash. People didn't want their real names revealed because really it would probably cause more problems than it would solve.
Well, I mean, that's the whole point of a role-playing game, right? You get to be whoever you want to be. But
Anyway, they ended up canceling it, and they didn't end up doing it.
very pertinent. So we see that there is apparently this sort of shift, towards this in many websites. Any other thoughts on this? Good, bad, inevitable, neutral? Well, the story goes on to discuss, to relate this to the case of Officer Bubbles. Anyone know who Officer Bubbles is? Richmond?
I think he was one of the cops in the G20 protest,
Yeah.
and I think there was a girl that blew a bubble
Yeah.
in his face.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna go to jail for something like that.
Yeah, he warned her that he would arrest her, if she didn't stop blowing bubbles in his face. So he became an object of scorn and mockery on YouTube comment streams where, it went viral. And you can have whatever your opinion you want about it. He is ridiculous. Or the fact is that he's under an incredibly tense situation, right? You don't want anyone, so anyways, whatever your opinion on that, what happened is he is filing a lawsuit against Google, asking them to reveal the identity of YouTube users who mock his actions. It picks, the identity of, a particular user, the PMOC Canada, as well as 24 other commenters. 1.2 million in damages. The videos have been taken down. The videos have drawn, now, and one thing to keep in mind is that these comments range from just mockery to threats. Okay? So, what do you guys think about this? Should he win his suit? Should Google start forcing YouTube commenters to maybe create a more robust and authentic identity by which they can be identified? What do you think? Has anyone heard of any other cases like this? This is not the only case where YouTube has been in trouble over, its sort of operations.
Isn't it, I think it should be more, like, if it's threatening comments and things like that, should just be taken down. Like, somebody should be, I know there's a lot of comments, but ultimately, it's kind of like, if they see them, there's not really a lot they can do about them being made, but they should just take them down so that, like, as soon as possible, whatever, but it's so hard to go after people because they're not using their real names.
Well, that's the Google/YouTube defense. This is not the only case like this around the world. And Google's defense is that we try, all right? We try to monitor these comments, and we take down offensive videos and comment streams as soon as we can, but it's impossible to perfectly police this platform, and that's their defense. What do you think of it? Yes.
Well, it's a difficult thing to be putting, strict rules on, because the whole point of the internet is that you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. You can create whoever you want to be online. So when you do offensive stuff like that, yeah, it's not cool, but you know what? You can still do it.
Well, until they manage to shut down that aspect or lock down that aspect of the internet. I mean, we talked about it in class before. There's much threatening right now about the possible closing down of the internet or partitioning of the internet, the increasing sort of closing of the openness that has defined the internet up until right now and continues to. Yeah.
If they let this go through and just be a bad precedent, there'd be thousands of people saying, I was making fun of on this video, there'd be so many lawsuits that would cripple the lawsuits. So,
yeah, absolutely. It would be impossible to operate, I think, I don't know, very difficult to operate the platform in anything recognizably like it is right now.
What do you do with a platform that would be screwed up, like the Canadian legal system would be backed up?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
There'd be thousands of people losing lawsuits.
Point.
I guess I'm looking at this from a different point of view, but I see this case as being drastically different from a lot of cases because it's politically motivated. Like, we can't say that people didn't break the law during the G20 protest and people didn't do things that were, like, legally offensive, and threats were made and threats were acted upon. So the fact that people are threatening a police officer who was working during the G20, there's nothing to say that they wouldn't act on those threats.
No.
In fact, I would say that they probably would, because like I know people on this campus who were at that protest who did break the law, and it was completely unacceptable, but they find it justified because they're fighting against the man. And it's like, so I don't...
No, you're right. I mean, it pulls in a whole sort of political can of worms,
Yeah,
right?
it's a politically motivated threat. It has nothing to do with the individual. It's just based on the fact that he was a police officer at the G20. It has nothing to do with his personal character. And I would, for those situations, I think we need to be a little bit more careful with saying it's not just someone making fun of someone on the internet, someone where these threats have been acted upon.
Absolutely. Hence my red font
Yeah.
on threatening, which can't be anyway.
I agree 100% with that, but I think that if that's the approach that they're going to take, that he can't argue that he's suing them for defamation. Because if he's a police officer who is accepting the fact that he's going to be in these situations, the video is hilarious. Like, the fact of the matter is that kind of stuff, it's not the first time that something like that has happened, and if he's acting, takes credibility away from him if he's going to act like a baby and be like, wow, they're making fun of me.
I'm what I would call a free speech fundamentalist. All right, my opinions. I'm kind of a free speech extremist, and where I draw the line then is actual incitations to violence. So, really, if I were ruling on this case, I would throw out any of his aspects of his claim that involves defamation. I don't think people have a right not to be offended or have their feelings hurt. I really don't. Which puts me outside of the Canadian policy mainstream on free speech, closer to the American policy mainstream on free speech. But when you're threatening, that's a completely different matter, and that's where I think is where his case has merit.
Well, where do you draw the line, though? I mean,
I don't know.
That's
Incitations to violence, basically.
yeah, but you can never please